I have one very quick question for Jim. The concept of article editor is probably new to most academics. I would imagine you probably had some challenges in explaining to them what that meant. But I also wonder if you actually pay people to be article editors, and if they raise the question of, well, I'm not being a regular peer reviewer, this is something different, shouldn't I be paid for it? Did that come up? And also, is that something you copied from PLOS One, or is that an invention of your own?
The answer is, wow, this is loud. The answer is no, we don't pay them. I don't know of anyone asking us to be paid. It's a sort of, you know, it's a peer reviewer who's peer reviewer plus maybe. So we haven't had those issues. It's something that we based on the original PLOS One idea. They've modified the way they do peer review, so it's a little different now. But Pete Benfield, who was the publisher of PLOS One, was at SAGE when we were developing the idea of SAGE Open.
Lots of hands.
Thank you. Are we doing this? We can ask all three questions, and then, okay, great. I'll start with Jeffrey. So are you proposing a sort of Angie's List that might be, you know, derived in the library, so librarians are the keepers and the disseminators of this list?
My blog actually has two lists on it that a lot of people use, and even some countries I've learned have been using to decide whether to award credit to researchers based on whether or not the journal appears on my list. But I think each library has to make a decision for themselves what they consider to be a predatory journal or not.
I mean, I want to build on that because in our lab group, we have something called Journal Club. And usually the graduate students are presenting, and this is just fortuitous. Last week, one of the graduate students actually presented something from PLOS, and senior faculty were a little disturbed and started talking about where journal articles should, you know, come from in terms of impact, and then proceeded to talk about impact. So I'm, you know, curious to know, and then the graduate student, I love this, actually said, okay, then you tell us what those descriptors should be in terms of where we would select journal articles to present. So now with open access, where would they go to find these? Because again, you know, in STEM, it's still a big question mark on selecting articles from those.
Right. There aren't many sources other than my list. There's directory of open access journals. They use inclusion criteria that are different than mine. There's a small amount of overlap. In other words, some of the publishers in DOAJ are on my list, but it's not very many. People use other measures as well, including what abstracting and indexing services cover the particular journal. The problem is with the predatory publishers, they don't tell the truth about themselves. So you can't take what they say at face value. So in every case, you have to make some sort of judgment, and there's no objective way to do it. It's always a subjective measure.
Well, I mean, I just use that as an example